This is the hardcore icon, Just Incredible, and you're listening to the 3 Count Podcast. Now, that's not just the coolest, and that's not just the best, the 3 Count Podcast. Well, that, my friends, is just incredible.
When in it, an unbelievable weight that you might hate, but you can't even.
Dang, high pass, we find that drag ball at.
Now entering the
Welcome
ring.
everybody to another great edition of the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller. I am your Sherpa. I'm the man who leads you on the mountain to the summit because that's what I like to do. But it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. And today, our guest is from ECW, WWE, Talking Shop, SWE, TCW, AKW, ICW, MPX. This man is an 8-time hardcore champion. He's an ECW world champion. He is an ICW world champion. He's also been an ECW tag team champion. He is the hardcore icon, Justin Credible.
What's going on? That's a hell of an introduction right there, son.
But I'm not even gonna lie. I have all these butterflies and the hair on my skin is standing up because I was watching you all through the Attitude Era and going into when when the F got dropped and they went to and I was watching you with, Sean and X-Pac, and I was watching you with Kane, and I was like, yo, this guy is amazing. And I never in my wildest dreams thought like this would be something that could happen. So thank you so much for coming on our show.
Oh, man. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it. And we're going to have a good time, man. Definitely.
Hell yeah. So for those who don't know who you are, and I don't know why they wouldn't, especially if you're an old school wrestling fan, can you please give us the 50,000 view of who you are, good sir?
My real name is Pete Polacco, PJ Polacco. I started wrestling in 1992 on my 19th birthday. As a matter of fact, the exact date is October 16th, 1992. In 1994, August, I got my first opportunity with the World Wrestling Federation. I signed on to do Aldo Montoya, the Portuguese Man of War. And 3 years later, when my contract expired, I went on to work for Extreme Championship Wrestling from 97 all the way till close at the beginning of 2001. Went back to the WWE to do X Factor with X-Pac, my tag team partner. Got let go, did some indies, went to Japan. And in 2005, I went back to Vince's version of ECW and did the one night stand. And a year later, signed back on for another run under Vince's ECW. So, and then after that, TNA and then, all kinds of other wrestling. I've been doing it for going on 27 years. So been everywhere in the business in a way,
Yeah,
been everywhere.
No doubt.
Yeah.
You've had one of the most unique journeys that I've ever seen and even just been able to follow. I would think for me it's at the top, but then there's a close second with TJP, because just watching you guys just venture and journey and just travels and everything you've done has been incredible. But for you, like you said, you've been running since 92, so it's been a hell of a ride for you. And it's funny because I just watched you a few days, actually it was a few weeks ago, on Talking Shop 2.
Okay. Yeah.
You're running a match with one of my friends, coincidentally.
Who's that?
Roman Roselle.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
It's funny how everything kind of circles back and you never expect it. Enzo Amore was at the show we were talking before we went on air about this WrestleFest that was in Maryland. And I've seen him around, but him and I had never really met each other, never got to talking. He came up to me and introduced himself and whatever. We said our pleasantries, and he goes, at first I thought it was a rib. He goes, man, I remember you as Aldo Montoya, being one of the last guys in a battle royal when I was a kid at Madison Square Garden. He goes, the crowd was so hyped. I wanted you to win so bad. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just so surprised, because I didn't know he was a fan like that. And to hear it, it was just interesting, and it reminds you just how long I've been in the business, first of all, and just how crazy the circle and this business is, where, a lot of times guys that are out there watching, 20 years later will be the ones that are, on top of the business. So it's always good to say, it's always good to be nice to everyone on the way up, because you never know who those people will be on your way down.
Right.
So
Right.
it was just a little example. It was really cool. Really cool.
No, that's awesome though. It's one of those things, man, where like there's like a list of people like I've always wanted to interview, right? And obviously
Yeah.
like as this show like has progressed and like grown and like evolved, it's been just like a dream. Like every person that comes on the show, I'm just
Yeah.
like, holy cow, I never expected to like talk to this person. And then, and here we are having this great conversation that we're starting off with. And yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, man, like for me, like I've been in the business now for 19 months and I've been traveling around. And I've been traveling around as a kid and then like as a military brat and then getting into the military myself.
Okay.
So like I've been traveling like here and there, and I started, like I said, 19 months ago.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that is just like, um, I'm just very curious because I know you talk about it in your YouTube channel about your character work and character development. Like, how did you find Just Incredible, and how did that like whole development like branch out to what it is today?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was just really organic. When I stopped doing Aldo, or I came from the WWE as Aldo to ECW, Paul Heyman had a name. He had the name Just Incredible that he wanted me to have, and because he thought the name was interesting and it would cause all kinds of heat. Like Paul's idea at first was like, here's credible. It's called just an arm drag or just a headlock. Kind of use it like that, and that really never caught on or never got over. But I just went at it as I think he wanted me just to be a traditional badass heel. And I love I love the Shawn Michaels attitude, that whole kind of DX attitude. And I was friends with a lot of those guys. And we had Scott and Kevin in WCW, DX, Hunter, Shawn, and Kid in the WWE. And I was like that kind of click guy in ECW. And so I just tried to take a little bit of that attitude of DX with that, the thing I used to do, that I got from DX, and just that raw heel attitude. And I also wanted to be a little bit like Ric Flair, So I just took a bunch of my favorite wrestlers. I took a little Shawn Michaels, a little Flair, a little Scott Hall with the mannerisms and stuff, and just rolled them into a package that through the months and the years was perfected into what became later the world champion, that version of Just Incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy to hear like how you say like it all naturally came together, and then like
It really did, yeah.
take pieces
Yeah.
like other people.
Yeah, and you also see what works, right? What the fans are buying into. There was, nothing I can remember off the top of my head, but I saw that I did things early on that didn't work. You know what I mean? I did things, and then the things that didn't work, you just don't go there, right? You move on, and I got my. They always say in wrestling, you need 4 or 5 things that you can do really well, and that are going to make the character. The rest is just wrestling, right? Just going out there and working a good match, etc. So I got my handful of things that became signatures that I did well, including that a lot of attitude, a lot of, like I said, that traditional heel, cocky, brash attitude. And, and it really worked out. It was that great, it was that great time in the business, right? That attitude era style that really worked for me, and it worked for all the companies really. And it was really just special. The fans loved that stuff. And it was kind of, it was like rated R wrestling. It wasn't PG style. I can go out there, I can cuss. We could bleed. We could have all kinds of shenanigans going on. So it really liberated you as an artist, as a wrestler, to do what you want. Almost sky's the limit.
Yeah, I was thinking because I know like with like the transition from ECW to going back to WWE, and then like having to come back to like the new PG standard of WWE was just it's the way to evolve and stuff like that. I know it was different, but I
Yeah.
feel like once you came back to WWE, like the second time, there was just like a lot of constraints for like ECW because like I felt like they were really trying to promote like their own dudes, but they're like they treated it like what NXT is now, right? That training that we're gonna test you out with the audiences, and then like you were there really to kind of help like put over some of those other names, but you know, like yourself, like you were just a massive name, and it's one of those things that I was like, I don't understand like why you weren't being pushed as a ECW alum, like you were the original, you know?
Yeah. And it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating for me. I mean, especially as a former heavyweight champion, as a former 2-time tag team champion. I mean, I was the main event of the last 2 ECW pay-per-views. You know, I was the main event of the last ever ECW house show that we did. So, I mean, when ECW ended, I was the top of the top guys. So, yeah, it kind of bothered me. I think WWE, from that moment, they wanted to use the ECW guys, use our value and our name to then create the new stars in the form of the WWF or WWE at the time. You know, they even tried that Kevin Thorne gimmick with the vampire, remember? And a bunch of other horrible gimmicks. So it got to the point where after about 2.5, 3 months, right before December to Dismember, which one could argue is probably one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. They sent me a plane ticket to go do ECW on Sci-Fi. I didn't show up. I remember going to the bank, and because they were paying us very little too. I remember going to the bank and not having enough money to go on the road that week. So I just didn't get on the flight. Johnny Ace, aka John Laurinaitis, who was in charge of talent relations, called me up and he's like, "What's wrong? Why aren't you on the plane?" And I said, "John, to be honest with you, I'm just not happy. I'm not happy with what's going on. I put over, I don't think I won a match on ECW. I'm lying. I won 2 matches on ECW TV and both were by DQ. Because they were trying to make it a gimmick where like Sabu lost to me via DQ because he put me through a table. They were trying to establish rules in ECW, unless there were extreme rules matches. And Balls Mahoney also lost to me by DQ because he brought a chair into the ring and hit me over the head with a chair. But I never beat anybody via pinfall. So anyways, long story short, I didn't show up. Johnny Laurinaitis called me, goes, "Well, we'll take care of it. We'll start, making things better for you." No money came that week. They sent me another plane ticket. I didn't go again. And I was just like, just let me go. I asked for my release and that was it. I just stopped showing up because I knew if I continued to go, they were going to bury the character forever. And then, the entire Just Incredible aura, the character itself would have been killed on the spot. And I didn't want that to happen. So.
Yeah, especially when it's crazy when you think about like how you treat it, because like it's your character, you developed it, it's your baby, you're trying to like do the best you can to make sure like no one else is like gonna destroy it, and like you go to a big organization like with the idea of like, hey, they're gonna help make this better, and then like you start seeing the pieces like fall apart. I've seen it with like tons of other wrestlers too that go through WWE, and I'm just like, yeah, I know, and I love seeing them post because then they're like, you see this new revitalization. I saw that with you too. Like once you had left, like you had like this new, like your eyes were a lot more alive. You know what I mean? Like when you left the WWE the last time,
right?
I definitely noticed that too in a lot of your matches. You were just like you were ready for something new.
Well, you're excited again. There's nothing that is more telltale sign that you don't want to be there when. There's nothing for you creatively. You're just going through the motions. It's very disheartening. And the thing that sucks about it too is this was 2006. I don't even know how old I was, but I had to be like maybe 34. So I was still a very young man, not even hitting my physical prime, which is very crazy if you think about it. I've just been in the business for such a long time. People had assumed, I'm only 47 today. So, I was just very discouraged. I ended up doing some stuff after that with Impact or TNA at the time. I had a feud with Jerry Lynn that went really well. And then in 2009, we ended up doing Hardcore Justice, which was another ECW reunion that TNA had put out, which, like all ECW reunions, it's good for the one show. But after that, it just, nobody can recapture the magic. That's the problem. Is I think you got to realize when to leave well enough alone. And so, yeah, that was that journey, that particular journey.
Yeah, and you're right. Like the return on investments just kind of like dwindle down. Like the more you keep doing,
Sure.
it's like
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a lot of issues where I watch like on TV where we do like these reunion shows or like these throwback shows, and then you're just like how come we didn't get that? I was like, well, it's pretty obvious why you didn't get that. And I was like, fans are just tired of seeing it. But you're right. Like,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say ECW was such a unique brand because like even when you had like the Monday Night Wars between WCW and WWE or WWF at the time, like ECW was like holding its own, and that's why I think like to me that's why so many people are like ravaged, like they salivate for like the reunion of like the hardcore matches, right? So when you see people like Tommy Dreamer or yourself, or you see Rhino again, like, or even the Dudleys, right? You see them all come back and you're like, oh man, we get to relive like that little bit of the glory day. And then, after that, you're just kind of like, well, what else do you want to do? Like, where else do you go from there? And
the thing is, if they would actually have a plan, I think a lot of the problems were they were using it to grab ratings to somehow get people excited about the product, and then they would completely go into left field. Like the whole ECW, Vince's version of ECW, was simply just to feature the older guys, or the older ECW names and guys that were established and well known with the product, and have those guys completely pass the torch to the new generation, which was Kevin Thorne playing the vampire, and all those other ECW gimmicks, having Bobby Lashley come in, Christian as ECW champion, even Vince McMahon as ECW champion. It was just bad television. They never once tried to recapture what ECW really was. They just had some real the boogeyman in ECW. I mean, it was just completely against the vibe of what ECW stood for. And it wasn't even so much hardcore wrestling. It was about good wrestling. It was about no bullshit, no frills, just kick-ass professional wrestling, and just no net. Just let the guys go in and do what they do best. And and they just didn't do that. The angles were non-existent. Paul Heyman read the writing on the wall. He got out of there as quickly as he came. So not having Heyman on Vince's product of Vince's version of ECW was really detrimental. And it was just it was doomed from the beginning, And it was a shame because the original, the 2005 One Night Stand, quite arguably, and I've heard this from many people, could be one of the best pay-per-views of all time. Not of the ECW era, of all time. The arena was hot. I mean, I was there. I appeared in the beginning of the show, caning Chris Jericho against Lance Storm, where we celebrated as the Impact players. And at the end, Lance and I came out in the Dudleys, Dreamer, and Sandman. And I believe I tombstoned Dreamer, I believe, in the barbed wire. So, that was our last appearance of the show. But what I'm saying is that show was so hot. That should have been what ECW was. Continue if they were going to continue on for the WWE. You know what I mean? They should have almost, like, that's where we left off, and we should have continually gone down that path. And instead of bringing in new guys right away to take away the old, if you wanted to go with the new guys, let it sizzle for a year. Don't do it right away. Right. You know what I mean? To a slow burn and see what happens. And they just wanted to just turn it into WWE Light, an ECW Light. So,
yeah. Speaking of tombstones, I had this question asked me by a fan because I put up there. Obviously, I put up that we were going to promote this, and one of the fans came back to me and wanted to know, why did you choose the tombstone piledriver?
That's a good question. It was an accident. My first match in ECW was against Jerry Lynn, and I was going over, and in the match, a couple of spots prior, the finish was a spinning DDT where I hit Jerry Lynn with a spinning DDT, cover him 1, 2, 3. Prior to that finishing move, we did a spot where I pick up Jerry for a tombstone. We do a couple of reversals where then he picks me up. I reverse it, pick him up, and spinning tombstone him. 1, 2, he kicks out. Then we went into the finish of the spin DDT. Afterwards, not that week, afterwards, after Paul went back to the studio and watched it on tape, he's like, PJ, change it from now on, because it looked good, I guess. He was happy. He goes, from now on, that's your finish, the spinning tombstone. And I didn't mean to spin on it. The reason I put a spin on it was I don't think I had Jerry properly the way I wanted him. So I spun and turned just in a way to get him, to get him properly so I could hold him right. So it was all an accident, really, a beautiful accident, because it ended up working out. But yeah, that's it was totally by chance and not really my original vision for it. Yeah.
I feel like most things happen by accident. Like all the
Yeah.
things happen by accident.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even for like me, like my character, like I fell into, because my first name is Clifford. There's no about it, but being called the Big Red Dog my whole life, like just falling into like the military kind of, it was just a beautiful accident. Like I had this idea for myself that I was gonna be like this like demented clown, and then like I was like, no, but I like the military side of it. And then like just randomly I said something, and my trainer was like, that's it, you're sticking with the military gimmick, and you're gonna be a mercenary, and it's gonna be beautiful. And I was like, oh, cool. He's like, that's good shit. So you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
did I have you on mute? I think I muted you by accident. No, all I said was as long as it works,
As long as it works.
Yeah.
So, almost 4 decades in the business, right? I'm just
going on almost three.
Yeah, 3 decades. Oh, I was thinking 92, 02, then 12s, and then obviously like 22.
Yeah, I'm 27. I'm 27 in.
Yeah, it's almost 3 decades
years.
in the business. You've got to have some funny stories. So I'm very curious, man. Like, what's been the worst bump you've taken that you can recall?
Wow. I really, I have. Well, I don't remember it, so this one will probably be a good one. But it's not that great. But this is probably the one that I regret the most, because it knocked me silly, and it really brought me back a couple of, maybe a whole year, as far as not being right. I was wrestling Jerry Lynn once again in Buffalo, New York, for television taping, and we were both standing on the top. And he gave me a sunset flip. Somehow, I think I might have been on the second rope, and he was on the top, and he gave me that sunset flip bomb. And I guess I folded up where it landed completely on the back of my neck. Oh. And I blacked out for a good 20 minutes. And I couldn't see straight, like literally. You know how Sean's eyes are like cross-eyed now from all the damage? I was like that for a while. And to this day, like I still have episodes where I get like that at any given time. And my vision was so blurry, and I just couldn't get right. I was throwing up for hours and hours on end. And in those days, times were so different. Like we were wrestling Thursday night in Buffalo, Friday night in Queens. Mind you, Buffalo's about 6-7 hours from my house, and about 6 hours from Queens, where we were on the Friday night. I had to drive because I drove stick shift. My wife worked for the company doing T-shirts. She couldn't drive stick shift. So I had to drive all fucked up, throwing up like every 30 minutes on the side of the road. Can't see. Get to the building Friday in New York. Paul gives me the night off. So then we drive down to Philadelphia, and after only about a day and a half of rest, I had to wrestle a 2 out of 3 falls match against Jerry Lynn at the ECW arena. And once again, I reconcussed myself, whatever the proper term is. and made it even worse. Just, because back then, man, that's what you did. There was no time off. And it was barbaric. I had no business being in the ring. To this day, I still believe I did permanent damage. And I was never the same as far as being able to take certain bumps. And I'll never forget it. I mean, I literally puked for 24 hours straight. And once again, having to drive home because my wife can't drive stick shift. Talk about a nightmare tour where I had to drive probably a good 1,000 miles across the entire Northeast, sick like that, pulling over every 30 minutes. I couldn't do it today, and I almost died that weekend. It was brutal. I had no business being in a 2 out of 3 falls match going 30 minutes. And you could tell in that match, it's out there. It was on the ECW TV. You could tell, like, just a simple roll bump, anything that even hitting the ropes, you could tell like I was barely able to walk, keep my head up. It's actually really disgusting to watch. I should have not been in the ring, very, very dangerous.
Damn. Yeah, no doubt. Here it's come from like the Sunset Bomb. Like, I feel like
sometimes, man, people think, and that's a hard bump anyways, because if you think about it, you're whiplashing, that way, right? And my head bounced off the canvas like a basketball. I didn't tuck my chin properly, or if I did, just sometimes falling from and having that momentum, you're just going, wha-cha. So your neck could go any way if you're not tucking it properly. Mick Foley always told me that if you're not sure of it, always hold it like this if you have to when you're going back. If you look back, Mick always did that when he took those big bumps just to protect the back of his head. So, but yeah, that was something I'll never forget, man. Probably one of the worst.
Yeah, I remember I had recently just ran a match in West Virginia, actually a part of SCW.
Oh, okay.
And I took a power bomb, and when I went up, and that was the first thing I did was just grab and duck because I was.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like
did it work?
Yeah, it helped me out a lot. Like I ended up landing flush anyway because the guy that I was working with is like very, very good and very super safe hands. So even just still, like, you never know. You just want to always protect yourself.
Yeah,
like,
you never know, man.
When I came down, I hit, and he's like, I've never seen. He told me to afterwards. He's like, I've never seen someone do that before. And I was like, yeah, I know. I just watch people who are doing wrestling matches, and I started picking up on little things, and I was like, all right.
Yeah. Pick up, bro. I always believe that, and I always say that to young men and women coming up in the game. Don't worry about what the other guy is doing. Worry about what works for you. Because what works for you may not work for me. You know what I mean? Just if you're able to pick and choose little things from other people and incorporate that into your body of work, it's the best way. Like I said, I took a little bit of Scott Hall, a little bit of Shawn Michaels. I'm not saying I was as good as them. Of course I'm not. But I just took a little bit of, each and made it my own, if that makes sense. So that's usually how some of the most successful people have been, is the guys that do that, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, and especially in this world, like, I guess for people who don't have like a character or don't even know what they're doing,
right?
Like, wrestling is such a massive pool. Like, there's no reason for you to not know, like, hey, I can peel and take from this guy, that guy. Because even like a move that I learned, which ended up becoming my finisher, I use a pump handle driver, and it was something I saw Tess do it. It was handed down to me by my trainer. But I've seen Tess do it. I've seen other people work it, and I was like, yo, like, if you're not paying attention, it's on you. It's on you not to be a student of the game.
Yeah, I remember Tess doing it. Oh my God, he was such a fucking killer in the ring too. He was so stiff, dude. Not that he even meant to. He was just so big and so strong that he would just, that pump handle slam, dude. He got because he was tall as hell. He would just fucking kill you. It's like, I hated that move. I hated anything. I hated working with him. Stiff prick. God rest his soul.
It's funny because so one of my friends who's actually working up on the East Coast now, Big Trouble Ben Bishop, just give a quick shout out to him. He's followed Kevin Nash like his whole career, but his big boot is equivalent to Test, and everybody's like,
oh, okay,
like Test does it. And I remember taking it the first time, and I was like, oh,
yeah, Yeah.
You're like, just step through it. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. If you don't take that bump a little early, you're screwed. Unless you want to take it and then do the old hit the side, roll off to the side, which looks corny, but hell, that's just incredible. And in 2021, take the boot and roll to the side.
Yeah, I do the take it down and just sit back up, and I just like give like
There you go.
what just happened.
Yeah, there you go. There's nothing wrong with that.
So,
shit.
It's wild, man. Because I'm just curious. Like you've also been, and we've talked about it, you're over almost 3 decades now. I need to know though, like what's been like the hardest hit you've ever taken?
Oh, wow, that's a good question, man. Probably like Sandman's canes.
Yeah.
Probably those. Yeah, definitely. I've been lucky. I've usually, having a heel manager, Jason Knight, who was one of my managers, would take a lot of the, because that was the heel's job, right? He's in there, and I would send Jason out first to kind of take the shot, and then I would sneak in from behind and cheat, But to add on to that, when I was in the WWE in 2001, I worked with Bradshaw and Farouk, Ron Simmons. Whoo! They weren't happy one time. It was SmackDown in Baltimore, as a matter of fact. It was live. I think it was live on Thursdays at this time during the Attitude Era. And X Factor had a little bit of steam coming up, and we were going over on the APA because Albert was going to interfere. You know what I mean? And we'd get the win. Well, JBL and Ron Simmons were not too happy about that, bro. They beat the fuck out of us. They bloodied X-Pac's mouth. Ron Simmons just about killed me, dropping me literally on the top of my head almost with a belly to back. It wasn't even a belly to back. It's just, I'm going to drop you on the back of your head, and folded me up like an accordion. Like I owed them money. And I had worked with those cats before, but they just weren't happy putting over the smaller guys for the 1, 2, 3. You know what I'm saying? They hated losing. They hated losing, but they hated losing to the smaller guys, especially. And anytime we wrestled, I wrestled JBL in singles, Ron in singles. But when I had to put them over, easy, light, no problem. When they had to put me over, boy, like I owed the motherfuckers money.
Isn't that their gimmick at that time too? Weren't they they're like the protection agency, right? Like,
yeah.
Maybe you just forgot to pay them. Maybe you forgot to pay them right before it happened.
Fuck that. And then when I came through, Undertaker was boys with me, and he was boys with them, of course, too. And he was kind of like the locker room judge and leader. And I come back, and Mark always called me Peter, he was the only guy in the locker room that called me that. He's watching the monitor. I'm walking back. I'm trying to no sell, but I'm fucking, I'm feeling it. And Mark goes, "Peter, you all right?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah." No sold it, right? Because I'm sure he wanted me to. He was checking to see if I bitched, like, what the fuck? Because that would have gone right back to them,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Or PJ's a fucking pussy, or something. I knew that was a test, so I just no sold it completely, and that was it. Went away. But that kind of shady shit I hate. Oh, hate that stuff.
Yeah, because I've heard stories about like Ron throwing like one of the meanest spine busters just all around, and then the crazy thing is that JBL's clothesline is something that I use as well, because I got inspired by him and like how he just throws in like shoulder on shoulder with a lot of meat on meat, just like taking people down. So like I've adapted those two into like my things. Sure. I'm like, yo, those are things I love too. So when we talk about like picking and choosing, listening to his clothesline was devastating.
But his line was, like I said, like I worked with him on a bunch of house shows, and I took the finish every night. I think the finish was I was doing a little bit of a comeback. I'd go to shoot him off. He'd reverse. He'd go for a backdrop. I'd kick him. And as I kicked him, he'd turn around and just clothesline from hell. Every night, not a problem. Nice boom, you know. It was just that night, you know. It didn't want to put us over, you know. So yeah, get your shit in, you know. Fuck.
So I'm curious too, right? So we talk about these matches and these post matches and things that happened. I'm very curious though, like, and I've started learning this, and I could talk about this a few times, but I've started learning this over like the last few months. Like, people typically don't eat before the shows, right? But they have
Right.
like that one match meal or like snack afterwards. So I'm very curious about what's your post match meal or snack?
Post or pre?
Post.
Well, anything that ain't nailed down. It doesn't matter. And believe it or not, I don't eat much afterwards because I'm so jacked. Usually I would only eat when I got back to the hotel. Yeah. And that's usually in those days, we used to all get hammered. So it would only be after we drank some fucking beer, would we probably eat, like we'd all order pizza back to the rooms and just, you know, I remember one time we were in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We had stayed, you know, I think it was like during the NWO for WWE. It was Hall, Nash, and Hulk, me and Pac. And we were driving in the limo, Hulk's limo. We're going to the hotel. We were about 2 cases of beer completely gone on the ride to the hotel. It was about 30 minutes. We go up to Hulk's room. We smoke a big fat joint. Fucking, you know, and Hulk's still in the fucking red tights. No, he had the black tights because he's doing NWO, and the bandana, and he's rolling a fucking fat one. As we sat there and just drank beer, ate pizza, and talked shop. It was really cool. Hulk was great. People don't give Hulk enough credit. Hulk was a great dude, man. Awesome to hang out with, you know. And it's surreal too because I wasn't a huge Hogan mark, but once I got to know him, you know, he was a really, really nice guy. Loved hanging out with him, you know.
I'm curious though, like, do you guys like post shows or anything like that? Like, are you guys like talking about, like, when you say you're talking shop, like, were you guys like talking about each other's matches and things that you could have done to like make them a little better?
Not necessarily about the matches, just talking about future stuff, like future angles, that kind of stuff, you know. Matches, not so much, because I mean, not that it's not, but you know, once the matches are done, they're done, right? We're always looking at what's the next storyline? How do we make it better that way? You know, who's going to work with who? You know, stuff like that.
That's cool though. I mean, whenever, like,
not everybody did that either. You know, a lot of the big stars didn't do that. They would finish work and that was it. You know, they just wanted to go out and get drunk and get some fucking rats or whatever, you know. For Scott, Kev, myself, Kid, you know, and that night Hulk, because we didn't hang with Hulk all the time. He would only come to TV anyways. You know, yeah, we always just wanted to talk about the business, you know, always trying to better ourselves, you know.
Right. Yeah, and you always got to try to future proof yourself, you know, like set you up for success.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm curious, man, like, we've been like talking about like all sorts of crazy subjects and going in and out, but I just want to know, like, what kind of advice would you give to up and coming wrestlers?
Right now is a great opportunity for young men and women coming up in the business. I would say, man, work in as many places as you can. Really pound the pavement. I know it's, you know, some people get frustrated because, you know, promoters are cheap and they don't always want to pay what they should for young men and women. And that sucks. That's unfair. But I would recommend that kids don't get really wrapped up in that. Just work in as many places as you can, regardless, even if it's bad. Just be in the ring as much as you can. Don't get hurt. Be careful. Because, you know, you're out there to get, like in football, you're out there trying to get reps. You're not out there trying to get hurt. None of those matches are going to matter. You know, most of them don't, unless it's a big indie show or whatever, but most of them are just another night. You just want to use those nights as the best practice ground you can in front of people, and just apply your craft, man. Don't stay out of the trap of, if you have a good match, like, all right, you work with Jay Smith every other weekend. You work with Jay Smith. He's the guy on the indies you have the best match with, and you guys are known to go out there and have a great match. When you do this match, don't stay safe. Go out there. Don't be afraid to call stuff in the ring. Like, especially if you know somebody, like, you want to take chances. You almost want to fuck up. Not that you want to fuck up, but don't be afraid to go out there with nothing, because those are the situations where you learn. Even if it's a bad match, you learn through those matches. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
don't be afraid to go out there and stink it up by trying something new, and always try something new, because people will forget that match the minute you go through the locker room. You know what I mean? You just want to constantly just stay creative, and just always keep it moving, and just always work hard, work unselfishly, but work at the goal of getting better, because like I said, like, guys that work each other at wrestling schools, they'll go out there and they'll put on their version of WrestleMania match. They've worked a million times. Like, how challenging is that for them? Right. The 30 people that are in the crowd that night, yeah, they'll see a good match, but what are you getting out of it? Nothing. But what you would get out of it is take that same guy you've had that match with and say, hey, tonight, let's just go out there with the finish. Let's see what happens. Only because that's a great time to learn, right? And because you're going to get yourself better. You're going to be thinking differently. You're thinking outside the box, and you're gaining really useful experience and knowledge, instead of going out there and calling the same match with the same spots that you're going to hit. Change it up. Don't be afraid to change it up.
Oh, I like that.
Best advice I can give someone. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, as you're talking about it, like, I'm listening and I'm like processing like different matches, and like I'm just seeing like different things happen out, just as you're talking about, just like,
because what's the worst?
Like,
What's the worst that's going to happen? Nothing. Nothing at all. And the best thing that can happen is you learn something, or you learn what not to do, but you're still learning. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
And that's what I think we as professionals got to understand, that you always want to keep growing. Always want to keep growing.
Bet. Well, this would be like my last like heavy hitting question before we get into the second best segment of the 3 Count podcast. So all I need from you, sir, is one do and one don't.
Okay. One do in the business? In the business?
No, just in the locker room.
Oh, in the locker room. One do. I'm old school, man. So I always believe, and to this day, I still do it. I practice this regardless. I go 27 years in the business. I shake everybody's hand. Everybody's hand. Not only the wrestlers, but the referees, because you don't know who everyone is, right? You could be shaking the promoter's son's hand. All right. You don't want to, disrespect anybody, right? So go out there and shake. If they're behind the scenes, cameraman, whomever, shake their hand and say, hey man, what's up? Doesn't have to be this real formal thing. Just, hey bro, what's up? Be very cool and cordial, put everyone over, and another big, and I'll say another big do is when you're at a show, watch every single match. That's huge. If you're at a show, man, I don't care when you're on, watch every single match. I remember being at a show with Terry Funk. I think it was in 2009. Terry and I were part of the main event, and opening match was at the ECW arena. Terry Funk and I were the only two at the Eagle's Nest watching all the matches. And Terry goes, "Oh, God damn it, Justin. You would figure we would be the ones in the back not having to watch this shit. And we're the only two out here trying to learn." And Terry's not going to learn anything from these guys, but you never know, A, but B, like, he's trying to learn What's the crowd like? What are these guys doing, right? I don't want to copy anything, or if somebody does a moonsault, I don't want to do a moonsault later on or whatever. So it's always good to see what's happening before you so you don't go out there and repeat it. Essential. That's a real pro's pro. And if it's good enough for Terry Funk, it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me and anybody else. And don'ts. There's a lot of don'ts. But let me think of one that really all right. A two-parter, because these are all loaded. Don't take any of this for granted. Just don't take any of this for granted. This business, anytime you get an opportunity, whether it's the opportunity of wrestling a match or just anything in wrestling, don't take it for granted, because it could all end very quickly. Whether it's your health failing you, or you get hurt, God forbid, or you just never get booked again. Who knows? Just never take it for granted. Enjoy it. And another don't is don't talk shit. I know a lot of guys and gals are into clicking up, and I've been on both ends of it, but clicking up and talking shit about people that may be having a hard time, or maybe not as fortunate as them, or maybe they're in a situation where they have heat in the locker room and people gang up and stuff. Don't be that guy. Don't be a bully, and don't talk shit, because I notice in wrestling that it all comes back to haunt you. You always want to be the same person. Try to be that same guy, because one day everything could be great, and it could all just turn on you real quickly. And people remember that. So, you always want to stay humble.
I like that. That's some great advice. And that's just great advice for life anyway. Like
for life. Yeah, very much so. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I understand. I've gone through the journeys, and I've seen just like in life, just whether I was in, college or wrestling or
sure. Yeah, it applies to everything.
Military. Yeah. Just be humble and be proud.
Humble, be respectful,
right.
Respectful of your elders, respectful of the chain of command. I always was respectful of guys that have been maybe 3 weeks in the business longer than I have. And it's very rare that I go into a locker room. I mean, it happens, but rare that someone has more experience than me. But I don't go out there feeling like that or treating anybody like that. I'm an equal. And I always try to remember that, be, humble and be cool, because people will also remember that about me. I always hear, man, you're so cool. You were so kind. And I'm not doing it to be a show. I'm not doing it as a show. I'm doing it because it's nice to be nice. It's nice to be liked, because this business is a callous, hard business. Why not all of us treat each other with respect and with kindness? Doesn't hurt, right? No. I want to reap what I sow. I want to give, you want to get what you give, and vice versa, So that's it.
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned watch every match, right? And it's something like I have to get better at, and I don't do it because I don't do it to be a jerk, but so they always tell me, whenever you get nervous, right? You get nervous, it's because you care, right? But sometimes I get so nervous, just sitting in the back, thinking of all the things that we're going over. I almost get to the point where I get sick, because I'm just I'm like, you're at that point where you're like, I don't want to fuck up and I don't want to look bad, but obviously you're doing something live. So for me, it was I have to sit back there, and I still respect everybody. I still talk to everybody, but I'll sit in the back and I'm just trying to replay
but you're thinking, well, here's the thing. And that's a good thing to a degree, but try this out for size. Cause I used to be that thing too. And I've noticed, when I had those matches, where I had to think too much, like you're saying, go over it in my head a million times, because it was so much to remember. That happens to me when I have too much shit planned. And it depends who you wrestle. Try not to have that much shit planned. And that's what I went to tell you earlier. You need to go out there and have matches that are, try it out. Plan your beginning, have the middle wide open, and plan the end. So it's almost like, 30% is pre-planned, 70% is call it out there, because you'll enjoy the process that much more. Yeah, you'll be nervous because you don't know a lot about what's going to happen, but that will free you up to be more of yourself, more of your character. And it'll, I'm telling you, man, it'll just, it's a hard step to take, and you have to be in there with the right guys, but it will, that's the breakthrough for somebody like you, is allowing yourself, almost like, don't be afraid to fail. What's the worst that could happen? Because through those things, you will, like a light bulb will go off. Like nowadays, dude, I don't call, I only call a little bit at the beginning and the end. Like the whole match, I just call it out there. You know, and it's a bit of a challenge at first. I mean, of course, experience helps, but it liberates you to work your character in the ring. Like, because when I was especially in ECW, when I worked with guys that did a lot of intricate high spots, you know, a lot of lucha shit, I was thinking so much that I didn't get the chance in the ring or during the match to be my character, to have that attitude, to be the fucking, come on, you know, that, because I was just thinking, okay, what's the next spot? So when I dropped it, and just started working, that's when the floodgates opened. It's a process. It's going to feel weird at first or almost unnatural, but don't be afraid to take that leap, especially if you're wrestling in front of a very small crowd. Because like I said, what's the worst thing? Seriously. Right. You're not wrestling at WrestleMania or anything like that. You're wrestling in front of 25 people. What does it matter, dude? But you're going to have to allow yourself to take that chance, and don't be afraid of it, because those moments is where you honestly grow, you know.
No, I appreciate that a lot too. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Also, yeah, like I said, man, I keep putting this over, but yeah, thank you. You know, like just even coming and talking about like this stuff.
Absolutely, dude. That's awesome. Thank you for having me once again.
But we're gonna get into the second best segment of this podcast, because people ask me what is first, and that is the Red Dogs Power Rankings that you can find every Sunday on our debate show, or Monday on IG and TikTok. But let's get into 3 Count Podcast, 10 Count questions. Mr. Incredible, this is how it works. Yes. I'm gonna fire off a bunch of questions at you. It's whatever first comes to mind.
Okay.
All right, let's put on the imaginary timer. Bing! And here we go. Sonic or Mario?
Who?
Sonic or Mario?
Oh, Sonic or Mario. Sonic.
Yeah. Favorite color?
Blue.
It's a Friday night. What you doing?
Nothing.
Awesome.
Seriously, nothing.
Favorite cartoon?
Oh, wow. American Dad.
Hey, shout out. Side question to that. Favorite character from American Dad?
Roger.
You gotta go with Roger. 3 things that you would take with you on a deserted island.
Fire, like a lighter. A phone, if you could, and water, I guess.
Favorite?
I know, it's boring. Favorite movie would be Star Wars Episode 4.
Hey, shout out. All right, here it comes. Tables, ladders, or chairs? Which would you rather use?
Ladders.
Favorite podcast?
Joe Rogan.
Shout outs. We were just talking about that before we went on.
Yeah.
Nominate one person that you want to see on this podcast.
I'd like to see Lance Storm.
Yes, 100% yes.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person that comes on this show: favorite curse word?
Fuck. Easy.
That's right.
Absolutely.
like there's any other word to use.
Right. No brainer.
No brainer. All right. So that is all my questions for the show. All I need from you, though, is to let our viewers and our listeners know where they can find you.
Absolutely. Just follow me on Instagram and Twitter, both at PJ Polacco. And of course, if you're interested in any of my merchandise, go to prowrestlingtees.com/justincredible. I have over 20 designs available, both ECW style and Aldo Montoya. So go on over, check it out. prowrestlingtees.com/justincredible.
There you go. So you know where to
Yes.
find him everywhere on all social media platforms. Guys, that's it for us. So you know what to do. This is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. And as I said, I am your Sherpa, the guy who leads you up the mountain, Clifford Red Dog Miller. But it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. And today, Now Entering the
One
Ring.
last thing. One last thing I gotta say. 3 count, like, this was not just the coolest, and this is not just the best. The 3 Count Podcast. Now that, my friends, is just incredible. There you go.
You guys know what to do. Tune into the next episode and be there, or
Yes.
wait for the outro, and then you listen to the next episode. Peace.
Nice.
What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3Count_pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3Count Pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give us a subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3Count Podcast also has merchandise. Oh, at prowrestlingtees.com/the 3Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So show us some support, please.